Alrighty, folks, it is time for round one of Grand Prix Mirage Expo. We are up against Cajun on Red White Koi Float in this first round. Just waiting for a moment as Cajun is getting ready to join us in the match here. So let's take a moment and look at their deck real quick. So this is Red White Koi Float. It is built around this 3-mana 3/3 flying vehicle. Cruise for 2 power. Whenever it attacks, you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card, exiling it and putting the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and then you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost if the resulting spell has mana value 2 or less. That is really important. It gets around any potential like Tybalt's Trickery kind of cheats that you might be familiar with in Canon Magic. And it really pushes you into a specific kind of deck restriction of not really playing other cards that are above 2 mana on the curve besides Quake Float. And from what I've heard, this card is prone to hitting itself, but we'll see if it actually ends up hitting itself in this matchup. Opponent does have some really scary creatures, some really powerful creatures. We'll see how well we can handle this, but we're going to kind of have to be going over the top of our opponent here. Fortunately, we do have some good removal in the sideboard, so if we need to kind of take a slower approach to this matchup, we can. So, let's get the die rolled and get in here. Rolled a 14. I get to be on the play. I think that's pretty good. I would very much like to be on the momentum here. Ooh, tough choice here. Calamity Cat or Ignited Soul on one. I kind of want to go Calamity Cat because I can go Calamity Cat into put a counter on Kieran of Boons, discard the Spirit Realm Phoenix, get the Spirit Realm Phoenix back at end of turn. And it looks like Cajun accidentally drew 2 instead of 7 for the opening hand, so I had to draw up to 7 manually. Oh, Mulligan. That's good for us. Don't love that the lands we have here are going to be shock lands. This is not a matchup where I want to be taking a bunch of damage, but I think ultimately it is better than not being able to play. So opponent keeps 6. We will shock in an Urban Jungle, Calamity Cat, and we'll just get in for 1. There are going to be matchups potentially over the course of this tournament where having a tapped creature on turn 1 is a liability. But this is not a matchup where we have to worry about... Kitsune Matriarch is the play here. Yeah, so that is going to be a problem. That is one of the best starts, I think, for a deck like this. We will draw. Temple of Origins. I think I will run out over the Urban Jungle here. Just while we have the opportunity, I'd like to not take more damage. Developing Shiori would be nice, but I think I really do just want to get the Kieran in play. So we'll develop Kieran. We will tap, discarding Spirit Realm Phoenix, get a counter on the Kieran, go to combat, and ship in for 3. And then end step, we buy back the Phoenix. And next turn, we can look at developing Ignited Soul and Shiori. So we can go Ignited Soul, counter on Ignited Soul, Shiori, counter on Ignited Soul, swing in for 5 between the Kieran and the Ignited Soul. We'll see what we draw, because that could impact whether or not we want to be putting a counter on Ignited Soul at all. If we draw a second Spirit Realm Phoenix, then the answer is hell yeah, but we don't know what we're going to be finding necessarily. Shigane Manor burns from the opponent, one of the slower cards in their deck, but that is going to put a counter on Kitsune Matriarch here. And we'll see if they choose to stay on the defensive. So Matriarch is a 2/2. Oh, we're just going to take 2. All right. Just getting in there. All right, we will untap and draw, picking up a mountain. That makes me think I like going for the Shiori plus Ignited Soul line here, and we can loot away this Urban Jungle. So that way we're not shocking ourselves a second time. So yeah, let's Ignited Soul, Shiori, tap to put a counter on Ignited Soul. Let's specifically put Phoenix away. And then jam in 4, 5. And we will loot away the Urban Jungle. Picking up the second Spirit Realm Phoenix, that's pretty good. Main 2, we will just pass and get back the Spirit Realm Phoenix. So what we can do now is we can hold both for advantage through Ignited Soul and Calamity Cat, or what I think I'm liking the idea of more, we play one next turn, use Calamity Cat to put a counter on it. And our opponent's only removal in the main is Swift Reproach. So that's going to draw us a card if they go for it. Unless they can empty a bunch of cards out of their hand before going for Swift Reproach. But they need to get 4 cards out of their hand for Reproach to not draw us a card. I was really expecting to be on the back foot of this matchup, but getting to be on the play. Wow, pitching a Koi Float to Shigane Manor Burns, Chapter 2, and exiling land Ruins Awaken. Ruins not great in the face of Kirin of Boons. We just make those tokens unable to block. Cajun concedes, and that's game 1 already locked up. Hell yeah. We go up these burn spells, and those are the only things we go up. I think in this matchup, I'm a little dubious of Shiori. I think I'm content taking Shiori out. Shiori did look pretty good there, but you know, I think I'm just more invested in things I'm happy to put counters on themselves. And Shiori is really bad to put counters on him. You really want to be putting counters on your other creatures with Shiori in play. And I think with that in mind, I'm not super crazy about him right now. And then we have 4 cuts to make. I could see maybe just dropping the Igneous Visions. I could see a world where, you know, looking at Cajun sideboard here, you know, there's Shocks, Punishment from Nyx, Soul Guide Lantern, Virtualize Onomastic, Conscript. I could see a world where Onomastic tries to come in. I could see I can't imagine a world where Conscript doesn't come in. I could see a world where the Burn comes in. But specifically thinking, I wonder if there's a world where Cajun convinces themselves that they need Soul Guide Lantern. And in that regard, I almost wonder, you know, do we go down some number of Igneous Visions and just say, like, you know, this is not a matchup where we need the grind potential, we just need to kill them. And I think I like that idea. I think I like just leaning into killing them. And our opponent conceding at the timing that they did, we didn't even have to reveal that we had the second Phoenix. Oh, this is a mono red hand. All right, Calamity Cat bleeding out Terminal Impact? Sure. I hope we don't have to ever use green mana. Oh, this is tough. We've got, what, 5 mountains, and this is 3 of them? 6 mountains. So this is half of our mountains. Oh, this is hard. So if we draw excess green cards before we find a green source, we can just pitch them to Calamity Cat once we get other creatures in play. We do also have We have Ignited Soul, Calamity Cat, Kieran of Boons, Fabricated Anomaly, Spirit Realm Phoenix. We have a bunch of things that come down off of only red mana, especially with Shiori out of the main deck. The only reasons we need green mana are to cast Menelea, cast Frolicking Tatsuko, and cast Foreign Encounter. And the Foreign Encounter, we can just cycle if we have to. So that's 12 cards that require green out of 53. I think I'm fine rolling with 3 mountains. I think if these were 3 forests, this would be an instant mulligan. But for 3 mountains, yeah, I think we can keep them on a red hand. I'm intent on going for Calamity Cat, but if this is Matriarch, I'm just going to Terminal Impact to that. So we draw. We pick up the second Calamity Cat. Get out of here. No scaling threat for you. I'm not taking the chance you can put 2 tokens into play on 2 separate events, because then bleeding out doesn't actually deal any burn damage to the opponent, and I want this to deal burn damage to the opponent. Second Torrid Path. Gash Thrasher. Gets in for 2. And I think if we're going to go for the bleeding outline, I'm going to wait until start of combat when Gash Thrasher forces the sacrifice of the memory token. So we'll untap, we'll draw, Primal Fisher. We will hold on to that for now. And we'll just pass. Just going to have it at the ready to either send or delete if need be. I think the ideal scenario here is we see our opponent run out like a pair of Kitsune Matriarchs, hoping to scale them with the Gash Thrasher here. Two mana. Second Gash Thrasher. Yeah, so they'll sacrifice this memory token. And I'm just going to bleeding out one of these. So they still lose the memory, but they're going to get a new one. We will untap. We will draw. Picking up a foreign encounter. That might be worth doing over Spirit Realm Phoenix or Calamity Cat shenanigans. Because I was thinking about, we go into our turn. We can Calamity Cat, tap one, putting a counter on the other, pitching the Spirit Realm Phoenix. Tap the other, putting a counter on the first, pitching the Primal Fisher. And then we could even tap and pitch a final land, a third card to untap one as a 3/3 to block the Gash Thrasher. But I think as is, drawing this foreign encounter, I'm in on just going Primal Fisher, Forest, foreign encounter. And our draws did reward us for keeping the triple red because we drew a green source before we ever found the foreign encounter or other green spell. So we will view the top 6, I believe. Yeah, top 6. Menelea, Kieran of Boons, Frolicking Tatsuko, Fabricated Anomaly. That's a tough choice. I think we go Anomaly. I think we go 3/4, develop the puzzle box, and then we loot away the Spirit Realm Phoenix immediately. As much as I want to get Tatsuko, its anti-synergy with Foreign Encounter is enough reason to avoid it. And we find the second Spirit Realm Phoenix. Whew. And now we've got a 3-4. This Cash Thrasher gonna be hard pressed to attack in. Does our opponent have any way? I guess, they have punishment from Nyx, they have shock. So those can both punish us for blocking here, which tells me that maybe we just don't block. They could also just Swift Reproach and exile this. We would not draw from Reproach right now. Just going to pop out Graveyard here so we can look at what we have to exile with Fabricated Anomaly. Opponent is going to combat. Loses the memory token. And they are going to attack. So this tells me punishment from Nyx or Shock is in hand. No blocks. With that in mind, I think maybe we don't go for specifically Calamity Cat with Spirit Realm Phoenix, because they can just burn down our Spirit Realm Phoenix in response. Red Hot Rider, that is going to exile a card under it. That is going to exile face up, so we do get to know they have a Plains here, and they can just play that Plains as land for turn immediately. So, alrighty. What else you got? Can't develop a Koi Float here. They just pass. I think we will untap, draw, picking up a Frolicking Tatsuko. If I thought that we could get Tatsuko in safely through a shock, I just don't see a world where we ever activate Calamity Cat targeting Tatsuko and it doesn't just get burned. Okay, so let's go down the hypothetical here. They're holding up 1 red mana. They made the Cash Thrasher attack, so that tells me there's a solid likelihood they were holding up a burn spell. If they are holding up the burn spell, I'm best off developing Spirit Realm Phoenix, Calamity Cat, tap Cat, put a counter on Fabricated Anomaly. Actually, I wonder if I don't use the Phoenixes at all as creatures right now. I think I loot a Phoenix to a puzzle box before I do anything else. And I think I go Calamity Cat, Frolicking Tatsuko, tap a cat, discard a Phoenix, attempt to put counters on the Anomaly. So even if they remove the Tatsuko in response, I still buff up Fabricated Anomaly. And if I'm buffing up Anomaly, I don't know if they can punch through. I think, yeah, let's tap the puzzle box, pitch a Phoenix. So we'll draw. We draw Bleeding Out. So that adds another complication. Maybe we don't even play a Calamity Cat here. Maybe we go Tatsuko, play Mountain, play Tatsuko, move to combat, and just swing with the Anomaly. Try to get 2 counters on it from its combat effect. So we are going to play the Mountain. The thing that's really hard is I think if we want to do the Calamity Cat line, we need to get the cat in play before Tatsuko. So, yeah, we really have to commit here, one way or another. I think Bleeding Out is good. I think we are not under so much pressure that we need to rush to use it. I'd like to go for Calamity Cat. And I'm just waiting here because if my opponent has interaction, they could want to use it. Let's go for Frolicking Tatsuko. Opponent says K. We will pitch the second Phoenix. Yep, here's the burn. Shock on the Tatsuko. So Tatsuko down. One counter on the anomaly. And I think we're just going to go for second Calamity Cat. Let's shuffle things around here a little bit. Move to combat. And I think we're just going to jam with both. Let's select everything but the Spirit Realm Phoenixes to put counters on both. And that is 7 damage. So they can block with Red Hot Rider, but all of a sudden, we are pointing 7 damage at their face. They are going to block 5, so Red Hot Rider down. And then end step, we get back both Phoenixes. And I think, knowing that our opponent had the potential for shock there, I feel like I'm pretty proud of how I chose to navigate that turn. I was prepared and ready to accept that our opponent had shock there. I think living in the world that our opponent did have the shock, I'm very happy with the line that I took. I think we could have potentially gotten better lines there. But, again, we're not under so much fire that we need to rush the bleeding out into play. Right now we have a card advantage engine that is putting a lot of pressure on our opponent thanks to Fabricated Anomaly and Calamity Cats and Spirit Realm Phoenixes. So there's a momentum we have rolling right now that I just feel really happy about. And I think, honestly, at this point, I'm inclined to just start every turn with Puzzle Box looting away a Phoenix. Obviously, if our opponent just drops a Soul Guide Lantern, that's going to change how we do some things. But if our opponent drops a Soul Guide Lantern here as one of the only 3 cards in their hand, first off, they've got to exile something from their own graveyard for that. Toki comes down. Okay, so this could be a 4/3 first strike haste creature. Calamity Cat. Question is, does Cat put a counter on Toki? I think you tap Cat for Toki just to give it haste and +1/+1 that way until end of turn, and you swing in for 6. At which point, me holding the bleeding out, does cost me 4 points of life here. Yeah, this is specifically Toki activation. So, another card exiled to a burned up memory token, and we take 6. And I think one of the things that's nice here is our opponent can activate Toki next turn. We can respond with bleeding out. And our opponent's just sitting on 1. So we now get to play the game of either can we kill our opponent from 17 here, which I don't think is a possibility, but you never know. We have 8 power on board right now. So we untap. We draw 3rd Calamity Cat. Okay. What does that get us? We could... No, that doesn't put anywhere near enough power in play. I was going to say we could, just tap Calamity Cats to buff each other, but that does not put enough power into play. So let's Puzzle Box Loot a Phoenix, picking up an Urban Jungle. I'm thinking for a moment here. If we play Spirit Realm Phoenix, put a counter on it with the 1/1 Calamity Cat, pitching a Calamity Cat. Okay, hold on. 5, 6, 7, 8 if we exile Calamity Cat, Spirit Realm Phoenix. 9, 10, 11, 12 from putting a counter on it. That is opponent to 5. Oh, Bleeding Out's just not quite enough to kill. Okay, I think with Bleeding Out not being enough to kill, I'm going to go... Calamity Cat. Tap Cat, put a counter on here, pitching the Spirit Realm Phoenix. This does untap. Tap, untap here, pitching the Urban Jungle. And we've got 10 power. We swing. I'm really just debating, do we have our 2-power Calamity Cat eat one of the Phoenixes here? And I think the answer is just no. I think we push 10, but... we take solace in the notion that without another creature in our opponent's hand, they don't have lethal on us. Now, obviously, this memory could have a 1-drop, but I think we're fine. I'm just going to get in response fired up as text in chat, because if they activate Toki, I am going to Bleeding Out Toki in response. Oh, and these these are back in my hand. They do the thing. It's not even a May. Notably, you must return it from your graveyard to your hand. Interesting. So opponent has 3 cards available to him. They have the 2 in hand, 1 under the memory. The memory card obviously costs 1 extra. They don't have any protective spells, so whatever they do with Toki, I am going to be able to kill it as a 3/2. I'm so glad this activates as a sorcery. I would have had to burn it on my turn if it was instant speed. Not sure what my opponent's scheming here, but they're planning something. They could be planning to use Calamity Cat activation rather than activating Toki. Here's something interesting that I wonder if would have been beneficial to my opponent. If the one card in their hand wasn't good last turn, perhaps there was value in tapping Cash Thrasher for Toki, then tapping Calamity Cat to untap Cash Thrasher. Seeing 2 mana here. Genotype Splicer. So they could try and teach Lifelink here. So they just go to tap both and make Toki a 5/4. So I'm going to let this resolve. Do I need to let this resolve? I think I can just let it resolve. I don't think they have burn that kills me. Actually, hold on. Yeah, because we just kill Toki. They can make Cash Thrasher a 2/2 with Vigilance. They can make Cash Thrasher a 2/2 with Lifelink. But either way, we just get to kill them. Because if it's a 2/2 with Lifelink and they hold back, that doesn't put them in a great position. If it's a 2/2 with Vigilance and they swing in, we just get to kill them because we have the ability to put 7 power on board, thanks to Fabricated Anomaly. And we also will get to go, Calamity Cat, Spirit Realm Phoenix, put a counter on Phoenix with the second cat. Actually, I don't even think we do that. I think we just swing with the Spirit Realm Phoenix on top of everything else and make them respond to the Fabricated Anomaly trigger. But yeah, I think we got this. I was nervous about this matchup, but we really got to jam some damage. Oh, they said started that turn with I win if we have bleeding out. Otherwise, they think they can swing it. Whew. Yeah, because they can hit us to 1 in the line that they were taking, but they can try and gain 5 to go from 7 to... Actually, no, I don't even think gaining the 5 does much to save them. Wow. All right, yeah, that's round 1. Easy, not so easy, but we cleaned it up with green-red counters. Red-green counters, and it really is red-green counters. We kept a mono-red hand there in game 2. 2 burn spells from the sideboard, And wow. Yeah, the power of having that flexibility to board in these more reactive spells against the more aggressive matchups and use them both as kill potential and as just their own utility. And like there's something to acknowledge there. If we'd had a terminal impact instead of a bleeding out there at the end, you saw I did the math. I was pretty close to being able to potentially just terminal impact the opponent and kill them that way. Because they had no untapped creatures. I swung for 10, put them to 7. I think I could have done... No, because I would have had to do one of the Phoenix lines to deal them down to 5. So I'm not sure Terminal Impact would have changed too much, but I could have just killed Toki Sorcery Speed there and really shattered some of the resolve. But yeah, wow. Koi Float down, and we are 1-0 in this GP. Guess we'll see how round 2 shapes up now. There's a lot more control in this field than I was necessarily ready for. And I did have a fair bit of trouble with control in my league run, but I mean, I still went 4-1, and after running up against a bunch of control decks in league, so I think this deck could absolutely still get there. We'll see how things play out, and I'll see you in round 2. Take care, everybody.